There's one owner, and that is the person that actually controls it. So in the case of the shares, there's one owner, which I think is a Rothschild company. I can't think of the name of
Seeding
it at the.
company.
Correct. That's the outfit. Okay. Everybody else has a claim, and that's as far as it goes. So they might as well have an insurance claim, and if the insurance company goes out of business, you don't get paid.
Oh
And so
boy,
that's what's going on. So think of it not as ownership, because that implies that you will eventually get a some level of remuneration or the actual goods or something,
a piece
and
of it.
that will never occur. That's really just a symptom. That's a side effect of the real bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy that that has to be presided over, in my opinion, is this moral, ethical, informational bankruptcy that is at the core of everything. The 70 years of secrecy about the woo-woo world of, reverse engineered UFOs, the hidden bases and stuff in Antarctica, all of this kind of stuff has to come on out. We need to shake ourselves off because we've been deluded so long, look at reality, and then decide what we're going to do. So it's my contention that if the disaffected youth of the millennial age were actually presented with a real world view of what's going on, that they would be quite enthusiastic about the potential challenges that are there waiting for them, and things that they're able to do, and that they're reacting the way they are now because of the very miserable vision that they've been given of what their potential lives are going to be involved with and are going to be about. Many of them are actually convinced that they will be dead in 12 years due to us going into a Venus kind of condition. And they may well yet be dead in 12 years if we don't get our act together here and start growing food indoors and worrying about that. We've had massive amounts of crop failures this year. Next year is going to be so bad that we'll actually have to take notice as a species. We've had new glaciers that are forming, some of them even up here in my neck of the woods in the crater of St. Helens. And so these new glaciers are going to form rapidly. They're going to scare us over these next couple of years as we realize that, we've flipped into the Ice Age component. We'd better get real about this. There may have been 100,000 pyramids on this planet, but certainly in the tens of thousands. We're going to find pyramids in Alaska that will almost rival those that are in Australia. And the ones in Australia are almost as big as the ones in Antarctica. And the ones in Antarctica are 5 and 6 and 7 times larger than what we find in Giza, our big, claim to fame pyramids, right? And so we're going to see that the reality of this planet is not as we've been told, and that this understanding is the prize. It's the goal that Faction A and Faction B have been fighting over for all of these years. Now, I exist in a woo-woo world where there's probabilities, potentials, and developing reality. And in that woo-woo world, I'm open to the probabilities and potentials that are not necessarily discussed or validated by mainstream media or even legacy thinking. Let's just put it that way. And so I examine things, and I can put them in my worldview and examine them and then set them aside or integrate them if they fit. And we're going to all be forced to do this kind of mental exercise as we go forward over this next year, and a lot of this stuff starts coming on out, because everything we've been told, even down to the level of how chemistry works, is going to turn out to be inaccurate, at best a superficial sketch for For Dummies book kind of an approach, right?
Right.
And so that approach to how we live has to change relative to the developing reality of what's coming out of Antarctica. So, for instance, we are able now to do searches just on the CIA documents that they released the other day, and just go and do that. If you get on the CIA site, bear in mind they're leaving cookies on your PC while you're doing this, but go and search for Antarctica and see the references you find there. Search out some of the names that you find there, and you'll find that some of them lead you back to military documents that can be obtained, some of which are movies from the films made, Super 8 films made from the 70s of freestanding water in Antarctica, a mountain range in Antarctica that the first peak they ran into was twice the size of Mount Rainier and St. Helens combined, and it's 100% coal. It doesn't even have dirt on it. You don't even have to scrape the dirt off to get at the coal. And the estimation was we could convert every machine on the planet, all of humanity, in the 70s at that population level. We could convert all of the machines on the planet to run on coal, and that one mountain alone would provide us 200 years of coal energy. So, and within those same films are illusions and background discussions you can hear going on that relate to findings of very strategic rare earth minerals in some appreciable quantities that are easy to get at. So Antarctica is not, as we've had it described to us, as a big ice block. And it hasn't been that way for the last 30 or 40 years. This is another aspect of the secrecy that has to change. We talk about identity politics and all the problems there, and this is really what I think of as birthright politics. If you're born on this planet, you have a right to share in its resources, and that begins with knowing what other people know about those resources. I see this as actually we have this. Okay, now here's where we're going to get into some spookiness. Okay, because it is feasible that, given the nature of my work, I could engender what's known as a self-fulfilling prophecy or a self-cyclic linguistic loop. So I could say stuff here that would get someone else to say stuff, which would actually cause somebody to have an idea, and then that idea would percolate out, and it would be manifesting what I had discussed. I do not believe that that is the case. I think that what I'm going to describe here has already occurred to people, and in fact is part of a plan. So I'll say that in my recent report in February, I discussed this thing that we're calling Strategy 3. Now, that's just my dramatic name for it, okay? But what it is like a third force idea that's going to, in my opinion, or actually has already occurred to somebody within the faction B, and that this strategy is to basically use revelations and secrets revealed and stuff as a psychological weapon to disrupt the remnants of faction A, and that it will occur to the people, or has already occurred, and they'll implement this as we get into this period of chaos and political problems in March through May. And when you think about it, it's a good strategy, because if you're rioting, and your main point of rioting is because you're afraid you're going to be dead in 12 years because the evil ones are in control and they won't recognize or refuse to recognize or are too stupid to recognize global warming is going to fry you. Well, then to suddenly find out that, the CIA and all these other people are in fact working diligently to harden everything against the Ice Age, and then all this other stuff coming on out from secrets revealed aspect of it, not being released by your mainstream media, but percolating up in the media you actually sort of trust. This is going to give you a different view on things, and you're going to have to think, I'm out here getting my head kicked for $10 an hour that George Soros is paying me, but not really doing that. I'm taking the $10 an hour to continue my fight against the evil ones because they're going to doom me to global warming, which isn't. So that kind of this in our data set shows this as being a game changer, that it will occur or has occurred to these people to use hidden truths. If you're in that state of paradigm disruption, then anything is possible, including acquiescing to the generalized trend of your friends getting all hyped up about the idea of discovering ancient civilizations and digging out technology and all the cool stuff you've seen all your life in TV that's never materialized, et cetera, et cetera. The legacy media is a symptom of the faction A, and the power structure that allowed the legacy media to stomp all over everyone has been removed. And so we'll see them fade away fairly rapidly. Soon you'll see that they won't have the economic wherewithal to continue, and a lot of the people that used to work for them will come on out and start truth-telling in the sense that, I was, told not to talk about this, et cetera, et cetera. And we see this, the fake news meme here within CNN and what I'm telling you is being supported by the economic issues going on in the background. So if you watch what CNN has done relative to certain joint ventures, they're starting to throttle back on the amount of money they're putting into them, and there's discussions now about maybe having to sell CNN in order for the Time Warner deal to go through. So you get to some very interesting conclusions about how rapidly this will occur. But in our data sets, the period of time when we have the major have to deal with the reality of the shares market being polluted by the infinite hypothecation claims, that kind of thing in 2018. At that point, there's not a what we would think of as a mainstream media. You got millions of, alternative media voices the way it was in the 1800s, which is the way it should be. Bix is correct. Don't have any third party between you and your Bitcoin. Don't have any third party between you and your silver or your gold. But insofar as houses and this kind of thing, at this particular point in time, with depreciating money and the idea that money may go hyper inflated fairly quick, there's a lot of arguments to be made that you're wrong, Greg, that the thing to do would be to maximize your level of debt at the moment and do as the power elite are doing and convert as much of that debt to hard assets that are going to appreciate if, and this is the caveat, if you can afford to service that debt in the period of time it takes this thing to fall apart. So if it took you a couple of years, if you could pay that debt off for a couple of years, it may make sense to take debt and do things like buy silver now and wait for silver appreciation, knowing it's not going to be instant, and knowing that and also knowing as you go along that you're going to be paying that silver off in cheaper dollars as long as you don't have to earn those dollars. There's the rub. If you have to trade your hours of life for that to pay off the nut, you're not really getting ahead that way, right? You'll be scraping by during this period of time. If you have the wherewithal to pay your house off now, I could say that there's an argument to be made that it may make more sense to not do so, to set this up such that you can continue to make the payments and use that bulk that would pay the house off to purchase an asset that will rise, whereas the house is not going to. So paying your house off now when its value is nominally $200,000 now is okay if you're going to sell it now. If you're going to think of selling it a year from now under those conditions, if you can sell a year from now, the idea that you'd get $200,000 for it is unlikely given our current state. Or you may get $500,000 or $6 million for it, but that $6 million will get you, 2 lattes and a bagel. Yeah. And so I personally, by the way, paid my house off in 2010 because I was tired of dealing with the bank. But get this, I have yet to receive a deed from Chase. And every time I hassle the bank or hassle the county or any of this, I'm told it's in the process. But because the MERS, because that was so screwed up, will I ever receive a deed? And if that's the case, what's the point of having paid off Chase?